The words of Jesus form a massive collection of commands. When you look at 32 distinct teachings, the volume of behavioral demands is staggering. Attempting to wake up tomorrow and implement every radical change simultaneously, from loving your enemies to giving in secret, is a recipe for cognitive overload. The human brain cannot patch that many behavioral bugs at once. Instead of viewing these lessons as a daily to-do list, we need to treat them as a comprehensive operating system. It is a modular framework designed to troubleshoot specific human errors. This diagram shows how we organize that system. Instead of tackling the entire 32-node matrix, we collapse it down to a single starting point, identifying your primary life friction. Spiritual and psychological stability doesn't come from attempting every protocol at once. It comes from applying the exact right patch to the specific error currently crashing your system. Before applying a patch, you have to accept a baseline law of this entire operating system. It runs in direct opposition to your natural instincts. The default human metric measures success through wealth accumulation and public applause. This framework demands invisible integrity, where your motives remain hidden and your faith operates entirely behind closed doors. Running this software requires a strict trade. You forfeit short-term ego satisfaction, the need to be right, the need to be seen, to build long-term resilience. Making that trade demands a massive upfront emotional toll. You are actively transferring the burden of control from your own hands over to the divine. If you try to hold on to your ego, none of the specific protocols we are about to cover will execute properly. Complete surrender is the mandatory prerequisite to running this system. The first major system error affects the relational struggler. If your daily energy is bottlenecked by interpersonal drama and deep resentment, you start here. Here, we draw a line left to path 1, the relational protocol, isolating continuous forgiveness. The required input is high, actively releasing bitterness and routinely praying for those causing harm. To gain emotional freedom, drop the weight of wanting to win. When you refuse to retaliate, you stop being a link in a chain of mutual harm. When the offense ends with you, it cannot be echoed back or passed on to the next person, which frees up the mental bandwidth once spent on managing the conflict. Relational peace is never achieved by forcing the other person to change. It is secured by ruthlessly eliminating your own internal bitterness. The second system error targets the overwhelmed achiever, the user battling daily anxiety and desperately trying to control the future. Back to our diagram, we move straight down to path 2, the anxiety protocol. This curates the principles of trusting providence and resting in God's timing. Notice how the active flow bypasses forced outcomes, requiring total dependence on God and relinquishing micromanagement of tomorrow. The trade-off is accepting that divine timing often looks exactly like a delay. You will have to build a specific tolerance for uncertainty. When you exchange the weight of worry for the lightness of faith, you start living one day at a time, securing profound mental clarity. Anxiety is a symptom of trying to govern what only God can control. Peace arrives when you resign as the general manager of the universe. The final error affects the existential optimizer. This is the user who has achieved baseline worldly success, yet feels entirely hollow. Drawing a line to the right, we find path 3, the purpose protocol, encompassing secret giving and quiet service. Watch the resource lines here. You must aggressively redirect your time, money, and energy away from self-promotion and funnel them into hidden generosity. The trade-off demands abandoning the accumulation of temporary status. You are accepting zero public credit for your good works. In return, you produce what the teachings call eternal fruit. This generates a legacy of impact that exists independently of your personal recognition. Lasting purpose is impossible to find while hoarding resources. It emerges only when you divert your focus toward hidden service and the needs of others. Let's zoom out and evaluate the return on investment for running these intense anti-ego protocols. This quadrant chart maps internal effort against lifelong impact. All 3 protocol nodes cluster in the extreme top right corner, demanding exceptionally high effort. Compare that to default reactions, revenge, hoarding, and anxiety. Those sit squarely in the bottom left, yielding poor long-term results. This operating system never promises a frictionless life. It promises a highly intentional and stable one. Sacrificing your ego is the specific cost required to build a system that remains stable regardless of your external circumstances. Remember the opening rule. Do not attempt to master all 32 principles by tomorrow morning. If you are the overwhelmed achiever, deploy the anxiety protocol today. Stop clinging to the illusion of control and start resting in divine providence. If you are the relational struggler, deploy the relational protocol right now. Your personal growth is bottlenecked by your refusal to forgive. If you are the existential optimizer, deploy the purpose protocol. Address your emptiness through secret generosity and quiet service. Look at your life. Pick the single protocol that addresses your deepest pain point today and commit your entire emotional bandwidth to running it. True spiritual mastery begins with a single, highly targeted act of surrender. Make that choice and watch your peace